My left hand.
Are we not?
In case if I show up next Thursday. Oh, yeah, okay. Whichever I have it down in my, if I show
Just still say anything you want to say.
Otherwise, you can really solve.
yeah, I can't guarantee you that, and then I just usually tell you.
When I got to, does anybody miss it?
I'm prepared for
I got one. Is anyone missing the pictures?
It was probably because the mayor.
Oh, okay.
Oh, just go for
Tell Jenny we're ready when they are to be on the air. Thank you. Okay, the
It's
light
on
is-
the air. It's on.
We are on the air.
Ooh, you brought your,
We made it. This is the November
going back home?
15th, 2016 meeting of the Committee of the Whole
no candy.
My PA.
City of Rolling Meadows. I am Len Prana, Mayor Pro Tem for this evening. And we're off and running. Barry, I guess you're going to take us off.
Sure.
City budget. Go for
The
it.
first one, and we're going to try keeping this very quick. You've already seen the 2017 proposed budget numerous times. This is the last committee of the whole. It is set for Tuesday night, November 22nd for passage. Obviously, you've seen certain ordinances dealing with the tax levy increase. And again, what you have in front of you is just one more summary. We do bring it back. Obviously, the last committee of the whole meeting, we did ask if there were any changes. There were no additional ones. We hope tonight that there are no additional, but with that, we don't have any form for this. It's just one last bite at the apple if you would like it, but we hope it's not. And with that, that's the opening on the 2017 budget.
And then, Melissa, are you up then?
Again, just to add to what Mr. Crumstock has mentioned, again, this is just one more discussion before next week's review of the final tax levy, second reading, and then also the budget resolution for the city and also for the library. So we're really turning it over to you for any final thoughts.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions, comments on the city budget 2017? We have been through this a number of times. Seeing none?
That's it.
Okay, then we are up to, that's the nicest budget meeting that I've had in 3.5 years. I just have to say that that's great. Next up, community events 2017.
I'm actually going to do the intro on this one. Hopefully, IT will come out to set up the PowerPoint. We do have some slides that go through this, and okay, Lori's setting up as
Is it a pre-party?
yeah, that too. As we've traditionally done, and the period before, we try getting our community events schedule out there for all residents to know. We do have the 2017 community events schedule in front of you. We've worked with the Park District with some of their dates. We hope that you appreciate what we've done. We also have a new item and obviously a change in the Friday format. But with that, I will turn it over to Lori Cizek to go over each of the events and then talk about the new events that we have. And you can see the full schedule in front of you. And this way we can also get it in news and views and we can start publicizing for 2017.
Thank you, Mr. Crumstock. I'd like to present the proposed community events for 2017, but first thought it might be fun to kind of recap some of this past year's excitement. So here we go. In April, we started with the Wine and Cheese Affair, which was a new event held at the Historical Society Museum. Thought it would be fun to kind of showcase that treasure of our town and have an event there. So it was quite a success. People that showed up had a lot of fun. Our Memorial Day events consist of the dinner, which is held on Friday night, the Memorial Day parade and ceremony, and then that's also the kickoff farmers market, so the first market of the season. Then we had our second annual block party on Kirchhoff Road, which was held June 10th. It's also where the police department is able to showcase their law enforcement vehicles from all over the area, and the fire department. Sorry, Terry. July 4th, we had our parade and fireworks. We were able to add a few things this past year by getting a kids' bike parade in there, a kids' bike parade, and a pet parade. And then we were diligent about trying to add new floats. So we did a new thing this year with the Friday evening markets, as many of you were aware. They were a lot of work, not quite the turnout we were expecting. So we're going to change format a little bit, as Mr. Krumstock mentioned. But here are some scenes from our Friday markets this year. Then we did a second annual parking lot party, which is a co-sponsored event with the Park District. Weather held this year for us, and it was a fantastic turnout. Speaking on behalf of the police department, they did a great job with the community bike ride. And of course, police department with their national night out, the city's favorite. Our wind down by the creek was not so wet this year, so we were able to bring in probably, we figured about 450 people showed. Ran out of beer. And the band was great.
Is that Laura up in the front?
Yeah, that was Laura.
That's why you ran out of beer.
Our senior luncheon was another big success. We had about 110 attendees, and we had a gal who was a musical act, and she was very engaging, and everybody loved her. So that was fun. Then we did the first annual Hometown Hoedown. There's Laura.
Thank you.
And that was a rainy day, but we still figured about 100 people, and families, but about 100 people total turned out that day. And one of our public works own, Brad Valentino, was the drummer in the band. You can't see him well, but he is in the back there in the gazebo. And then wrapping up, this is last year's pictures, of course, but the fun tree lighting and spaghetti dinner, which we will be repeating in a few weeks. So with that, I just wanted to make note that we will be continuing with farmers and food trucks for the 2017 year, or we are proposing that anyhow. We're going to do it on the fourth Saturday of each month, May through September, as in the past. And then two new events that we would like to propose this year. One would be, they're called Fridays Rock, and they're kind of going to take the place of the Friday markets. We wanted to offer a little bit more diversity and listen to some of the residents who really want to see music in the park. So we have this beautiful park, Kimball Hill. We have a wonderful area for music to be played there, and we just want to keep it simple with food trucks and a band. And advertise it as a Ravinia-styled event. Obviously, there will be some details we'll need to work out with the police department, but we're hopeful that these will be successful, that the weather will hold. And we have chosen 3 dates, 3 Fridays, June 16th, July 7th, and September 8th. There's really no rhyme or reason. We just wanted to have one per month, minus August, because that's when we'll have wind down. So we're not going to charge for the Fridays Rock. And like I said, there's still some details, but it will be not quite the hoopla of wind down. And then the second event that we'd like to propose is an idea that the Park District came up with, and it's basically an indoor taste of Rolling Meadows. It's to be held at the community center. The plan is to have a band, so it will be an evening on Saturday, March 4th from either 6 to 9 or 6 to 10. We're still trying to work that out. We're hoping to get about 15 restaurants that would be willing to pass out samples. We're looking then to have wine and beer tastings as well, and then we'll charge a flat fee per attendee something like $25 with alcohol or $15 without. So once again, we're still working on the details, but I think it could definitely be a fun event, and hopefully we get the participation we need. With that, the other events are listed, and wanted to see if anybody had any questions regarding this topic or the calendar.
And the final note, obviously, and this is, majority of this money is from the general fund and the foundation, so we are always looking for sponsors. If you'd like to donate to the foundation, if you'd like to be the chief sponsor, as everybody knows, from Wind Down, Ben Franklin Brink really stepped up this year for that, and we would greatly appreciate it. Anybody, little donations, big donations, we're all available, and the foundation does support a lot of these events.
Okay. Anyone on the council, comments? Mr. Banger.
Thank you. I obviously support farmers and food trucks and these other activities. Lori and I had talked at the end of the season about the Friday farmers markets, and it was a great thing to try. It just didn't work out. And I guess being one of the vendors there, I saw firsthand as my kids worked the stand and I walked around. That is, but I think this is great. Our Saturday farmers and food trucks activities are gaining steam, and I think we talked about this 4 years ago when this debuted. It's something that's catching on. A lot of people are getting into, call it local business if you want, or the farmers market side of things. They want organic produce, et cetera, and we offer that. And I think we're getting to the point of critical mass with good vendors. And Lori's been doing a great job of getting new vendors. There were several this year, even some who I think basically debuted at the Friday market, and hopefully they'll move to the Saturday market. But I had read over this, and I'm very glad we ditched the Friday farmers market concept and replaced it with something where people mostly just socialize. I think that's a great idea. So kudos to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any comments? Well, Ms. Cizek, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we move on to the most spine-tingling and exciting part of the meeting, EAB update.
This is actually, as Fred comes behind me, this is another update on our little EAB, our bugs. And I won't call it what I usually call, because I know some people only count it once. But again, we just want to give you the update, and we're hoping the best that we can, with 2016 being that last year, but we still have some 2017. That's why it's some money in the budget. But again, when you look at the EAB throughout most municipalities, we were behind when the bugs came into Rolling Meadows, but we're almost done, and that will be greatly appreciated. But with that, Public Works Director Fred Vogt is behind me, and he'll take you through the update that we have.
Thank you. Thank you for the exciting introduction on our Emerald Ash Borer matter that we see wrapping up in 2017 with the completion of the program as it stands with removing parkway ash trees. Just some statistical highlights. We've to date had 1,750 ash trees removed. Going back the last 3-4 years, we've got 63 identified for removal in the upcoming months. There are about 250 parkway ash trees that we consider in fair to good condition. The majority of these are trees that have been chemically treated on several occasions by either homeowners taking it upon themselves to do so, or the 30-some trees that the city has along Kirchhoff Road in the downtown area that we continue to have treated on a every other year basis. Since the start of the Emerald Ash Borer removal program, we've planted about 1,600 new trees. We've got about 150 to 200 left to be planted in 2017 as a result of removals late this season, and those that will go into 2017. Overall, we've got about 10,000 parkway trees that are maintained by the city. 8,500 of these are in parkways. The other 1,500 are within city-owned properties, facilities, open spaces, such as Salt Creek in particular is the largest grouping of trees that we maintain. Private property, we have had a increase, as was predicted, in terms of private property EAB problems and ash tree removals. We take those on a case-by-case or complaint basis for investigation if the property owner doesn't act in a reasonable time to take care of the problem and remove the tree themselves. So we go through the standard process of hazardous trees that's outlined by the code that the Public Works Department and City Forester can do, and we've had pretty good compliance with property owner cooperation with those for those that we do have to notice. Emphasis in the future in terms of expenditures for trees. Over the past few years, we've gotten predictably behind with our tree pruning. Certainly over past decades, the recommendation was a 7-year pruning. New recommendations, practices that we see in the forestry industry recommends a 5-year pruning. That works out very good for our tree inventory, for the sections of town to do. Because we are behind, we do want to give serious consideration to doing a 5-year cycle, at least for the next probably 2 cycles. Again, subject to budget availability, but within the report we provided some the summaries based on what's in the proposed 2017 budget of the work that we're looking to do next year, both on the EAB removals, the remaining replacements, and then the contract pruning, plus the Public Works in-house pruning to take action in 2017. So that's where we are at this time. There have been a couple of questions that we've had from residents in recent week about the replacements going on in recent weeks and continuing. Because we switched vendors this year for tree replacements, not only have we had new trees planted by Acres Group, which is our 2016 vendor, but some of the warranty work from last year's tree replacements is still ongoing. That was St. Albans Nursery, and we hope to finish those up before the end of November with regards to the warranty replacements. So just a little update on that. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Alderman Diastis.
Thank you. Fred, as I walked through various wards, many residents asked me about dead trees they have in their parkways. What should they do, or who should they notify to get those taken care of?
Call the Public Works Department.
Okay.
Yeah, we either have them inventoried. We haven't recently done markings of them like we had to do over the past couple of years, just because there were so many and so many questions about that. But
no, I mean replacement trees, the ones that we've planted.
Yes.
Several people have asked me, said, what do we do? Because obviously it's dead.
Yeah, call Public Works Department.
Okay.
We'll trust that it's on a warranty for replacement, and if it isn't, either way, we'll make arrangements to have it replaced if it's dead.
Basically, if someone, so everybody hears and understands, if you had a tree in your parkway replaced and the new tree is dead, just call Public Works, and they'll take care of this for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions, comments? Okay, thank you, Fred.
Thank you.
I guess you're not going far because Barry's going to start us off on Brookwood. I just want to make a couple points. Is the last time we met, the council wanted us, council direction was that we would have an action plan, and Alderman Cannon was the one that pushed this on this for this agenda. So tonight, hopefully, we'll have an action plan that we can approve and go forward with. Barry?
Obviously, thank you very much. Obviously, Fred and I are here, and also City Attorney Jim McCall, and what we were asked is for some suggestions and some comments. And I'm just going to keep this kind of brief, at least for my comments, before I turn it over, because Fred's going to go over the sheets that you have before you, and anybody at home, sorry you can't see the new sheets. But it is a double-prong way that we are looking at this. Obviously, tonight, we hope that the council will give us the head count to say yes to go out to do the appraisal, but it will be an expanded appraisal because there's going to be another piece of property that on the Brookwood side that we need to get appraised so we can do it. The two-prong is being nice, that we can continue communicating with Brookwood, trying to get some kind of resolution. The other part is once we have the appraisal and everything is pivotal on the appraisal, is then we would go back through condemnation. So you have a parallel line as everything goes along with this. But again, for people at home, the write-up that you see is almost the same write-up that we had about a week ago at the city council meeting, but now we've also talked about the next direction that we would like to go. With that, I will turn that over to Fred, and obviously Jim McCall's here, but hopefully tonight you'll give us the approval to stay with the parallel lines and how we need the updated appraisal and then a continuation to an appraisal a little bit larger.
Thank you, Barry. The report outlines the legal actions first, followed by some of the engineering, and then followed by, lastly, the code issues. Number one is the recommendation of staff to begin or resume, as it is, the condemnation process for the acquisition of a stormwater utility easement on the Brookwood Condominiums Association property. We did a appraisal approximately 3 or 4 years ago, I believe, and that obviously needs to be updated. In a minute, I'll get into the potential to expand on that in terms of property. Secondly, as kind of the first prong, phase 2 would be to have the city attorney work with, as is able to work with the Brookwood Condominium Association attorney or legal counsel, as it is, to pursue the easement acquisition without having to go through condemnation, if they would be willing to discuss and hopefully cooperate in that regard. Certainly the process would be hopefully shorter than to go through the full condemnation process. I mentioned larger easement potential when this matter was discussed last month. Some of the input we got from various aldermen was to look to do what we can to avoid development of stormwater detention on the single-family homes along Jody Court to the south in order to offset what stormwater detention storage wouldn't be on those lots. We started looking, public works staff and the city engineer, at different locations, and different locations are very limited. One of the maps that we handed out tonight, the one that has got some blues and greens to it and isn't quite as dark as the other one, shows one opportunity where there is an excess of surface asphalt on the Brookwood property that certainly could be used while trying to maintain the same number of parking spaces to kind of bump out the stormwater area to the north in approximately the center of it. We don't have any accurate calculations yet, but we believe that this would provide at least half to 2/3 of the acre feet of storage that would otherwise be developed if we went to the south and moved the existing fence and used some of that 20-foot easement that was recorded back in the 1980s when the homes were built. So just an idea. There may be some other fine-tuning. We've talked about internally retaining wall use. There's certainly a cost to that. The original concept plans developed several years ago did not have retaining walls. We're trying to be sensitive towards the cost, but one of the things that we strongly recommend is to direct the city engineer to put some costs together, kind of analyze what would work best, because that then ties into the question of, do we simply get an appraisal on the detention as it currently exists, in terms of square footage impact on the Brookwood property, or do we expand that to look for additional properties such as in this illustration here that we handed out tonight? The other items, which from a staff standpoint we think are parallel paths but really not tied in from an essential standpoint, is to continue to look for pricing for proceeding with clearing the vegetation and trying to regrade that property. That would take permission from Brookwood to do that in a reasonable time frame this winter. We've not been having a great deal of success getting pricing back from companies that would do this right now because they're all very busy with end of the year operational issues, and hopefully once the good weather passes and they wrap up, we may be able to get some prices for that, and really don't know whether if we could do that in the winter or do that in the spring. We're certainly trying to target that, but that remains to be seen, and again, whether we can legally go into that property in short order in the upcoming months would kind of run a parallel path. And then lastly, just not to forget about it, are some of the code issues and questions in terms of moving forward with better opportunities for compliance would be a separate path not tied into our initial action plan. So hopefully that puts some organization to this in terms of what actions we would look to do in the upcoming months, and open for any questions or comments or discussion at this time.
Thank you, Fred. Alderman Cannon, since you brought this up first, I'll give you first crack, first bite at the apple, so to speak. For questions.
I had the privilege of learning a little bit about this earlier this evening, and Mr. McCall was gracious to spend some time with us, and I think it's a great step forward. I hope Alderman Veenbos and the people in his ward are happy with what they've come up with. I think it's a great step. And I think from the discussions that we had today, it sounds like this thing has gone on for a lot longer than I even knew about. It's almost like 10 years. So I hope the people feel like we're moving forward. I think Jim and Fred's group have really done a nice job of trying to put together a reasonable plan with a reasonable price tag behind it. I think it's a great step forward, so I'm very encouraged by it.
Okay. Thank you. I will agree with that, because when I stepped into the seat, I received several file folders from previous aldermen that have dealt with this. Next comments, Alderman Diastis.
Fred, can you explain to me on this picture I'm looking at? There's a red hash mark.
Yes.
What does that line indicate right there?
That is the location of the existing stockade fences along the rear yards of the properties on Jody Court, and it's a few feet in from the actual property line.
It is a few feet.
Yes.
And from that fence to the Brookwood parking lot, would that be what we want to take as easement?
Correct. That's what we got the appraisal for about 4 years ago.
And is that this blue line, what this blue line indicates?
It's equivalent to the blue line on the other drawing. Yeah.
Okay, so essentially, if we were to do this from the fence, from the fence and beyond, we're really, because I don't know what that fence looked like, but so we're not going to be taking space from people's backyards?
That was the discussion that was held at the October Committee of the Whole,
Right.
to try to avoid doing that.
Right.
Now, as I stand here, whether or not I would commit to saying the best plan would be to not disturb the fence at all, or whether there would be some what I'd call remedial regrading in some of that areas and repositioning of the fence, still would need to be looked at. Again, that existing stockade fence is within the 20-foot easement that actually was provided to the city upon development of those homes. So we certainly, again, want to, in the spirit of if the direction is to minimize or avoid moving the fence, that's one thing. But from a regrading standpoint, we may find it beneficial to do some regrading, but then reposition the fence as close to its existing location as possible. There's also some trees and things that would have to be removed.
Okay, and then this third of an acre that this punch out here, that kind of is a good idea. Is there anything else that we can capture on more on the Brookwood side than on the resident side?
That's what we would need to have the city engineer do some evaluations and some exercise. Certainly, some of the parking stalls, if removed and then replaced from a grading standpoint, may be able to provide a little bit of detention. There may be some areas where we can punch out a little bit more area, retaining walls, that type of thing. But it really all has to kind of deal with cost benefit at some point as to if the costs are too great to develop it, it may not be worth.
Okay, and so then my next question, I guess, I direct towards to Mr. McCall. In terms of the cost, could we assess a special service area onto Brookwood to do all this, since a majority of the work will be on their property?
Well, some analysis would have to be done in addition to what's already been done as to what the benefited properties are. Based upon the current, I shouldn't say current, but the previous analysis, it was a 50-50 benefit both to the Brookwood and the single-family residents. Based upon any kind of new design, some additional analysis would have to be done.
Okay. So the special service area is based on the benefiting parties?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, benefiting properties.
Benefiting properties, okay. And then do the benefiting properties have to approve this? I seem to recall when we implement a special service area, if so many opposed it. So explain to me one more time how that would work in this case. I see 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 houses on the one side here of Jody Court. What if they oppose the special service area? How would that impact it?
Well, currently the benefited properties consist of, according to what we have been dealing with, the Brookwood condominiums to the north,
Right.
which consists of, as I recall, 122 units.
Okay.
And then there's the single-family homes to the south,
Okay.
which consists of
27.
27 single-family houses. So it's not just the 7.
Okay. Okay. So if we wanted to do an SSA, I recall a certain percentage, if a certain percentage of the benefiting properties said they didn't want to do it, how does that impact us?
Well, the process is there's the ordinance proposing the special assessment, special service area, and then there's a 60-day waiting period, there's public hearings, but in the event that 50% or more of the property owners, more than 50%, together with more than 50% of the electors residing within that entire benefited area, object to the imposition of the special service area, then it would not go forward.
Okay, so 50% of the entire benefiting area. So it couldn't be, the Jody Court people all say, no, we don't want it, and the Brookwood people say, don't say anything, as is the case with them. So that would be less than 50%, so it would move ahead.
They're collectively considered as one.
Correct. Okay. They're collectively?
Collectively, yeah.
So-
you'd have 122.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
Plus the 47.
Okay.
But you also have to delve a little further to figure out how many owners there are.
Okay.
I mean, if husband and wife own a single-family home, that's not one, it's two. So you have to put everybody together.
Okay.
You opt out, you don't opt in.
Correct.
If that
Yeah, I
starts.
understand. So, okay.
And based on my analysis of like 3 or 4 months ago, the assessed value for the Brookwood properties and the assessed value for the single-family homes had a separation of about $50,000. One was at like $1,050,000. One was $1 million, somewhere in there. They were pretty equal.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Fred.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any other questions, thoughts, comments? Okay, the way we're, if we have no other. Yes, go ahead.
I do.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I didn't.
I'm sorry. The Alderman from the 7th Ward, Mr.
Thank you very
Beanboss.
much. Well, first of all, thank the council for getting it to this point, and thank you, Mike, for bringing it up as an agenda item today. And I see a few Jody Court people here today, too. So obviously, they're extremely interested in the outcome of how we move forward, and it looks like we're starting to move very quickly now, which is a good thing. Yes. I just kind of reviewed, once again, the message, the memo that you put together, Fred. And some of the paragraphs are asking for, should we go forward or not, if I recall?
Yes.
Did you want us to give you direction on those today? Or
If I may,
okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
I have sat down with Fred and Jim,
Okay.
and we came up, I think, with a course of action. We're going to ask the council, I have
Okay.
6 points that we
I'm
need
fine with
to
it.
move forward with,
Okay.
unless you have.
Yep. I'll go.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments? All right, so this is the way I'm going to do it, one step at a time. First off, and we'll need direction from the council, is should a larger easement be sought? Now, the reason for asking that is when I asked for them to come up with a map so that we could see what would be going forward. And so by any questions or comments, in other words, we're looking for a larger easement, which is coming up from this camera. So all in favor? Yes, go.
I would be in favor of a larger easement if it came from the Brookwood side. If it's going to impact the Jody Court side, then I'm not in favor of it.
Right, and that's what was brought forth by the map that was in front.
I just want to make sure that
Yeah, the map.
that I'm
The map that was brought forward, that the easement would go into Brookwood. So I have show of hands to go forward to give direction. Well, okay, that is a majority. Next, we'll have the city engineer analyze and revisit the detention plan, moving it to the north. So it's the same thing towards Brookwood again. So all in favor? Move forward with that. Thank you.
Was that a majority?
Yes, it was a majority.
It was a majority, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, obtain cost estimates for cleaning the existing area. Show of hands to go forward to give direction to staff with that. Majority.
It's the actual
Yes.
swale, creek, whatever you want to call it, that's what we're getting costs for.
and is this something we're going to charge back to Brookwood because it's their swale, their creek, that we're getting an estimated cost to clean up?
Right now, we're just looking at
We're looking at
the,
what the cost estimate is to see, to go forward with it, because we don't have an idea. So, yes, Fred, go ahead.
Thank you, Alderman Prana. If I could, once we get cost estimate information, I would expect
Right.
we would come back either to a committee of the whole meeting or to a council meeting for further direction to authorize the work, number one. Number two, to make sure we can get permission from Brookwood. And then number three, determine what we do with those costs. I think that would be the
Fred, do you
city's
have
outlay first.
Do you have even a guesstimate I mean, we want to get a cost to see what it's going to cost to do this.
Yes.
So, do we have any idea of what the cost, to get the cost is going to be?
I don't want to hazard a guess at this time, and it certainly would be and could be variable based on what the costs are, whether we determine all of the vegetation needs to be removed initially or whether some of it could wait. I'd feel a whole lot better once I get some better information to come back to the council on that.
Because basically what you're looking for is to go out for bids or get estimates of what this is going to cost us.
First, it's proposal estimates, and depending on those costs, we may choose to go for bids on it. But first, we have to determine what level of interest there is within the market.
Okay.
I'm hoping to come back, within a couple weeks on that.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Judd.
Thank you. Is this something we could take out of proceeds from the condemnation In other words, if the condemnation, we have to pay them 10 grand and this costs 3 grand, just making numbers up, can we reduce the 10 grand by the 3 grand to clean it up?
No.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure I understand this. We're going to go out and ask companies to give us a price to clean it. We're not paying somebody
Not yet.
to give us a price.
Just getting pricing.
So we're just going out to get a price. So this will cost us nothing.
At this point in time, just time and
Okay.
contact.
Yes.
Yes.
It's just basically the bid process. Next step would be to begin the condemnation process.
We're going to take a vote on that?
Straw vote.
Okay, can we have a straw vote on that of going out to get cost estimates for cleaning the existing area? Show of hands. Majority of the council. The majority of the council has said yes. Thank you. Okay, next is beginning condemnation process. We have a show of hands that we begin the give direction for our attorney to give the condemnation process. Show of hands. That's the majority of the council. And then finally, to give Jim McCall and Fred and Barry, whoever's the simultaneously to contact Brookwood's attorney to attempt to negotiate an easement. And that would be the final part of the puzzle. And I don't know if Jim wants to step in and say, you know, as even though we've started the condemnation, if Brookwood is to step up, we could stop it at any time, or?
Well, I think we started that without. We've indicated that the city council could pursue the condemnation with Brookwood, and it just didn't go any further because the unit owners just didn't get the requisite vote. So, but that's not to say that we couldn't, commence the condemnation process and at the same time go back to Brookwood and see if in the meantime some kind of a resolution could be worked out. If it does, fine. If it doesn't, well, that's fine too. We'll just proceed with the condemnation.
Okay. Alderman Diastis.
If y'all haven't figured out, I was on this council when this thing started, like Mike said, like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was miffed then, and I get more miffed as the years go by. That the people who live in Brookwood pay no heed to anything that we do. We've tried to do things, we've put $40,000 in the budget, we've done all this stuff to be good neighbors and good community, and we get snubbed. So if you're asking me, do I say we call them and say, oh, guess what, we'd like to work with you again? My answer is no. Go to condemnation. They can watch us like everybody else can. I've had it with them. They don't want to work with the city. They don't have any respect for their neighbors on Jody Court. And I think it's time for us to take action, and condemnation is the way action I want to take. I vote no to contact them anymore.
Okay. Alderman Beanbass.
I agree with Alderman Diastis. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Any more comments, questions? Okay, the last part of it is, should we simultaneously contact Brookwood's attorney to attempt to negotiate an easement? We show of hands for yes? That is not a majority, so we will not be contacting Brookwood's attorney.
And just one quick clarification, just with the straw vote, we do need the appraisal to be updated. So just understanding that the council understands we're getting the appraisal for the expansion, which would give, again, we would need that for the condemnation anyway, but we do need the straw vote because we will be utilizing funds for that.
And is there anything else to tie that up before we end the evening?
Just make sure that I have a straw vote that people understand we're spending money for the,
The appraisal.
appraisal. And I can't get it out of the retainer.
So, we can't.
You want to owe him money on
Yes.
So do you need a vote?
Do you
I thought we
okay.
approved the appraisal.
No,
No?
no.
Okay, so Barry, what are you asking for specifically?
Just the straw vote that the appraisals can continue on and we get the right one that we need for our condemnation.
And that'll depend on the work that the engineer does in the upcoming couple of weeks to determine the square footage, the actual boundaries of it. So I think that will go hand in hand.
Yep.
So we need a strong vote on moving forward with the
Appraisal and engineering. Yep.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's in a majority. We have a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Second? We're out of here. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.